This is episode 11 in our ongoing podcast series on Bikva Seira. And today we're doing one of the unfinished pieces. Um, I was thinking first to combine the next two unfinished pieces, but now I'm thinking of doing them separately. The one we're doing now is also at the hlas.org /RAEK /2 Shane 1.pdf on page MEM. And it is called Bameh Kokheinu Gadol. It's a short one, unfinished, so a short one. Again, I think I'm going to do them separately. This one and the next one, the final one in this series, Hegel v'Chidush. But we'll see. You'll know by the end of this episode whether I did both or just one. So here too, it opens by Kokheinu with Iyunim. Not sure why. We'll see if we can figure out, but I'm not sure based on the fact that it's a fragment. In every generation, a person is required himself to see himself. A fascinating thing. Every generation, a person has to see himself as soul, as if it is coming out of a very narrow passage, and the passage of this world, and mafliga, and then it flies out to an infinite expanse. So the first part of the statement reminds us of Reb Nachman, Kol Kulo Gesher Tzar Ma'od. Right, that the whole world is a Gesher Tzar Ma'od, and this is true. It's a Meitzar of Olam Hazeh. But unlike Rav Nachman says, just which is mashu that you're continuously going on a small bridge, you're not getting off the small bridge. Here you're supposed to try and get off the narrow confines and expand into a broad expanse, which is an extremely difficult thing because most people are comfortable with confines. That's the way life is. Most people want to have confines. They don't want to be in a boat area where there's a broad expanse and potentially limitless areas in which to get lost, or a deep uncharted chasm in which to get in order to fall and lose oneself in that way. So the idea is, no, you actually have to seek the expanse. He says how. He taught as Kinzei Avar, the soul tours the secrets of the past, Makshiva Gosa seat, and listens to the footsteps of the future. So it reminds us that the person exists in the very fine point between all of the past and all of the future. Each person has the role in it. Every moment, of course, it changes, but there's this idea: I'm linked to the past, linked to the future, and I'm not living in a vacuum. It's the opposite of that song of one of the obscure Rishonim, which I don't remember who it was. Havar ayin v'asida dayin, v'hovek herafayin dakom minayin, became an MBD song. The past no longer with us. The future is still in front of us, and the present is just the blink of an eye. Why worry? And if I recall correctly, I think it was Nefesh Harav, if I saw it, that Rabbi Soloveitchik was very opposed to this statement. Again, I think it's from one of the obscure Rishonim. You can look it up, but because it's absolutely against our entire perspective, which is connected to the past and to the future, and functioning in the present on the basis of our connection to the past and the future. And that poem is saying, no, you're dissociated past, dissociated future, and the moment itself is only fleeting. There's no reason ever to worry about anything, which is a very nice parallel, perhaps, to Kom Kulo Gesher Tzarma Bikolo Fakli Klau. Why be afraid? Why be worried? But the trick of Avrohom is, no, maybe you shouldn't be worried, but don't be worried because you separate the past and the future, but rather because you're linked to the past and future. And it makes from both the past and the future the musynthesa, a synthesis, a form of synthesis, al sod havaya, on the secret of havaya, which can mean, play on words, secret of existence and the secret of the present. One has to be always walking around with the past and the future in mind, and that gives us the synthesis gives us our understanding of the reason why we're here and how to live in the present. But people did not make this, take this path together. And of course, happens to be that I'm recording this. It's the week of Parshas Noach, Migdal Bavel, when all of humanity is separated into these different of ours and our seeds, and therefore Hoves. People did it in their separate lands, their separate nationalities. Just like these lands and nations, they don't have similar languages. Zulazu to each other. So to their thoughts, the things in which they put their study, the kavanam, and their things which they intend. All this, none of this can be measured in the same measure. Not only did each nation, when it turned to its past and to its future in its reality, choose just a different derech than another nation, than other nations, can get open to acher, but also a different mode of transportation, different mode of progress. Over the road which it paved for itself. There are those who did not think how to traverse this distant road, which is endless past and endless future. Mitoch binas ha'oveshlem banu es binyan atitam ve'vinu es binyan Avrohom. They took the present. They didn't build from the past and to the future and live the present accordingly. They took the present and extrapolated it to the past and to the future. And that's a fascinating thing. Human beings have a tendency to use their present as a guide for understanding of the past and the future. Rabbi, I put this in the introduction to my Sefer on Shoftim. Shema Yisrael, Shema Sanetzach. You're supposed to listen to eternity and live your life accordingly, not take your present life and make that your eternity. And but that's not what people do. People, they build their future structure. They build their future structure and understand their past structure. Based on understanding of their present, that's how they prepare their steps. As a kina, as a taiva, as a covered, shlitim bolam chayehem shachshav. And if a person has no past and not concerned with the future, so then the operative drives are kina, taiva, and covered. Jealousy, desire, and the pursuit of honor. So they found that to govern their daily lives. That's most people's drudgery surrounds the measures of kina, time, and cover in their lives. And this also is how they look at the past and look at the future. And in fact, that's very much a materialistic, but also could view the past and the future on the one hand, because everything is you base instincts. It's also a corrupt view of the past and the future. It's also a cynical view of the past and the future. If everything is basically in a taiva covered, it must have always been basically in a taiva covered. always will be based on type of covenant. That's how we experience life every day. Um, they understood, they see their kings in the present fighting battles with each other, and different or wars which are ongoing constantly on the face of the earth. They understood with the measure of their understanding, to the extent they could understand, Kigam Elohim Asher Yitzum, so to the gods who created them. Also Muhammad Ish B'Reu. They also must have made wars. So Rabbi Avrohom is explaining Greek mythology, other mythology as well. But the mythology of gods is, okay, we see these petty drives among ourselves. It must be that the divinities of the pagan perspective also have the same traits, and they went through this process to put us where we are today. And also their children. They too will fight and fall in the same way. Or fight and succeed in the same way. Same victorious. For lo Allah they never thought af achas ben achshav shel olam abrov. Very beautiful metaphor. You can't make zerushav between the present and the past, and the present and the future. The fact that you're living in the present doesn't say a thing about the past and the future. I always get very upset when people try to psychoanalyze even non-Jewish personalities in history. How can you do that? But certainly Jewish personalities in history, when people come and try to psychoanalyze the greats of the prior generations, what gives you the right to do that? Especially because you're coming on the basis of your understanding today to try and understand them. You're trying to put people into the box in which you live, which you function, and that box is how you're going to define them. I had this today as an interaction on Facebook. Somebody was denigrating, I would say it's a hot topic, he was Haredim going to the army, and during the Yom Kippur War, Chaim Shulevitz made sure to shorten the Bein Hazmanim, that people should go back to learn right after Sukkot to yeshiva, and just like some Gadolim Pub said that happened this week, and without getting into the issues among Charedim, so somebody said, well, it would have been better if Chaim Shulevitz had said that they should go to the army. And besides everything else that bothered me about the statement, the idea of taking the circumstances today in the here and now, in 2024, and retroactively applying them to 1973 is absurd. The issues are not the same. The conditions were not the same. Society was not the same. And yet, people say, take their small boxes with their current categories and apply them and impose them on the past and on the future. And they don't, even though there's no warranted basis for that. These decrees, in other words, here Gzera also has a mean not just decree, but like Gzor means the cuts, the patterns, right? These hard and fast rules and these patterns, which people live today, asuyos livtol min ha'olam. They were quite likely to be eliminated from the world when the current life is negated. And they might not have existed in the past until we got in the situation which we are today. It says, this is the Torah of Greeks. Greeks are used the term for Greek mythology, and its friends. Everything is brought down to size. And Bafutner has a beautiful mashal. Bafutner says, why is the clock tower, I forget where I heard this for the first time. Why is the clock tower, quite possible. So, Shalvim Shlita, I think it's just for 90. He's also one of the people introduced you to Rabbi Avrohom, among others. But in any event, he said, I heard from him. I might be mistaken. He said, why is the clock tower the highest building in the village? You think Bajam Shot is because everybody should see the clock and be able to adjust the watch accordingly. So Putner says no. He says if the clock was on the ground, then everybody would adjust the clock according to their watches. It has to be up so people can't reach it and change it to be in sync with their watches. I think his mashal was for Gadol to be Yisrael. It has to be Mura Me'am and not be influenced by the people, not be down at the. But it's a very good mashal for this too. In other words, people will take the past and want to chop it down to size and make it in their image and say in the future. And people won't look to the majesty and potential grandeur and the extraordinary profundity which the past and the future may actually represent. So everything becomes humanized and dehumanized. When we talked about God, we didn't then define God. And to say there's this God and that God, and they live here and they function this way. We didn't actually try and impose our understanding on God. Now he tells us the power of his deeds. The Maaseh Bereshis, and then Maaseh Avos. Maaseh Chaim, Maaseh Nisim, the Maaseh of which life is made, and the miraculous stuff of this world as well. And even that is koach masav and not koach atzmo. We can't define God. We understand we can't define God. We don't bring it down to our level. All we can even speak about is koach masav lamo, the power of his activities, which are manifest towards us. Rak kol elokim yisalech bo lamam yadu adam chava tmuna laro. This past week's parsha, they heard Ruach Elokim Misalech. Was it Salech Bagan? I don't remember the exact quote. But in any event, they couldn't perceive HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They didn't have any perception of him as a countenance. Tumura Laro Sulasi Kol. They didn't see any image, only a voice. As Kol Savyav Upikudav, the voice of the sound of his commands and his directives. As Kol Tamudav Adrachaso, the sound of his learning and his guidance. It says, human beings are put in this world to by HaKadosh Baruch Hu with guidance, even Gan Eden, to work it and preserve it. Like it says in Navi, I, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, teach you to be advantageous to you, for you to be effective. And I to lead you in the way in which you should go. This ani of the Master of the Universe. So that's the end of the mimer. This is where the lone Igmar kicks in. So it started by Kokheinu Gadol. That was the title. And it started where it had the word unim. And obviously, the idea is, I think that there is this idea that history and the future as well are things where there's greatness and things where it even at transcendence, just like we don't try and find HaKadosh Baruch Hu because he transcends this world. And so we hope the Asi love will certainly be transcendent. And we have to hear that eternity in our lives, and that our greatness is that we are trying to attain that level of understanding and apply it to ourselves, as opposed to taking our understanding and applying it to everything else. Now, it's important to understand a famous Rabbi in which he says, Rosh Chodesh is different than all the other Yom Tovim. It's not as great as celebration. It's not as great as celebration of the Yom Tovim. The other Yom Tovim celebrate the events which actually happened in the past. Rosh Chodesh celebrates the events that are going to happen in the future. And so Rosh Chodesh is lesser yontif than other yontif because the yontif celebrate the past and yontif celebrates the future. The Rosh of the future is with us already. It's in a lesser extent until it actually happens. But Tzadok says, and I don't see this, but Tzadok was Tzadok, that the closer we get to the ultimate redemption, when this Shabbat or Rega will take place, the more Rosh Chodesh is observed and celebrated by us in this world. The classic example of that is in the next week's parsha, not this week's. Vayidav Adon, because Avrohom pursued the four kings to Don, and Rashi says that they're Tashash Kocho, because Rabbi, whatever the language is, Makrim Shama Avodah saw the Bnei Don bringing up Avodah Zarah there when they brought Pesach Micha to Don and started worshipped it. So the future had an impact on Avrohom in the present. So the future is supposed to have an impact upon us, and that's part of the idea of Tzipis Yeshua. If I recall correctly from Abdesser, it could be maybe some of the Alter Kel. Yeshua means you're always looking towards the Yeshua and applying what the Yeshua is going to be in how you live today. To live in a state of, so to speak, redemption. So not just to bring redemption, but live in a redemptive state. So Bameh Kokheinu Gadol is this totality where we have the past impacting upon the present and the future. And I remember, and I don't remember where I heard this first, but Zachar, to remember, is the lashon of Zachar, male, because the past is supposed to kaviyachol, so to speak, impregnate the future, or at least the present, but the future as well. According to what Avrohom is saying, the future is supposed to impregnate the present as well. So, Zachar is much more powerful. The past does it because the way it took place. It influences and changes and brings the directs the future. And the way it's started explaining now, it's the transcendent and great and majestic and splendid. We're supposed to have that impact. And of course, this brings to mind one of the famous poems of Rabbi, which I'm not sure if it is. I think it is. Though it's some reason it's sideways. htas.org /REK Zimri-yeshiva.jpg. So Zimri-yeshiva.jpg. Let's open this up so I can put it straight ways as opposed to sideways. It's not talking about past and future. It's talking about transcendence, though. Es nishmachschol lemerchakim kla. Your neshama to distant catapult. As a merchav shel shchakim kra, the breath to the heavens rip. Or mishmashos koring zol, steal the light of the sun and the stars. Mikvos havim tevol, and in the mikvos of the clouds, immerse yourself. As the mishmachol merchakim shlach your neshama to the distances you should send. L'rei harim ma'amakim brach, to the highest mountains and the low valleys flee. As the merchav shel shchakim kra, the distance to the heavens you should rip. As nishmachol merchakim kla, your neshama to the distances you should catapult. So the idea is that Bameh Kokheinu Gadol, in what is our power great, and that we have that past and aspire to the future, and it's supposed to encourage us to transcend the present and to go in that Merchav Gadol, that great expanse which the incredible Jewish history and hope for the future demands. A tremendous breadth which everybody has to try and accomplish to the extent that they can. and it's the opposite of mitzvah sarashim lumada. Sarashim lumada is to do things by rote and by repetition and by habit, and it's stultifying, narrow, constricting. The idea is to find a way to meitzar karasi ka anani b'merchav ka, to find oneself, or b'merchav yah, to find oneself in the from whatever constraints one finds itself, to transcend them and find the greatness which each and every person has in their capacity to be expansive beyond the normal definitions of life, and beyond, not to impose on the past and future one's present, but to take the past and future to inspire one's present and propel it higher and higher. So I think that there actually was enough. Everybody can add Yishmael Chacham B'Yosef Lekach to the unfinished piece, what they think Rabbi Avrohom would have done with it. I gave you some direction, which I think is possibly what he meant. But by all means, I'm happy to get more inputs and hear more about what other people think might or mean. And Mirza Hashem will do Herga B'Chidush next time. But do we want to point out this idea? Obviously, it's the Herga B'Chidush is very much the idea of not getting there, not sticking there, but aspiring to Chiddush is the Merchav. So in fact, the two pieces may very well be related, and each one says is unfinished, but perhaps they were both unfinished simultaneously because they connect to each other. This piece about the history of the past and the future, and the next piece about a habit versus renewal. And the habit is the meitzar, the renewal is the merchav. Hashem come down next time.